The question in life really becomes how to be yourself more fully, how to live in tune with your instincts and in tune with how they relate with the surrounding environment. Every moment is now. Every moment's a recreation. Every moment has the opportunity for infinite change, provided we allow ourselves to, and provided we allow ourselves to break from our conditioned thinking and use deeper intuitive faculties to understand what's the correct way to handle the present moment. And in that way, when you start to really become yourself more authentically, it's not something you could have predicted or thought of from your previous level of consciousness. It's not something you can plan or concoct or contrive from a scheming mindset. As a matter of fact, it's beyond the scheming mindset. It is the true you coming out in flow, rather than tethering itself to who you used to be based upon ossified mental conditions and processes. And this process is among the only things that can really lend true happiness to somebody, because you have to be one with life. You have to be one with who and what you are at the present, and one with the surrounding environment. And if you're not, then you become an isolated fragment, right? This harsh thing that needs to protect and defend itself. And then every aspect, every mentality becomes a matter of self-defense, and everybody becomes an enemy. And it's that very, an enemy only exists when you yourself are protecting something. And of course, from a physical standpoint and everything, you need to protect yourself when there are threats. But I'm talking about at a deeper psychological level, when you can create enemies just in order to keep this deep sense of self that you have. And it operates very subtly, it operates very pervasively. So the process of undoing this can take a long time, on one hand. On the other hand, you do it by engaging with the present now and allowing those things to simply fall away. There's this scene in The Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars, where Han Solo and his crew, they tether themselves to an Imperial ship, in the sense they're running from them and they just hide on top of the ship. And then they know that the Imperial people let go of their trash before they go into light speed, right? So when they release the trash, the Imperial people, the bad guys, Han Solo and all them just float away with all the trash, and they just look like refuse. Then the Imperial ship disappears into light speed, right? Now, so you can allow these mentalities, these unnecessary mentalities, to just float away with the rest of the garbage. And only then do you have the ability to actually go into light speed in life, to actually go further. You can't when you're so tethered by hot coals that you hold in your hand that you think are good, the coals of vengeance, the coals of hatred, the coals of condemnation, and so forth. The coals, they're in your hand, and they burn. They burn. And you think that your ego rather thinks that you're hurting somebody else by having these, by condemning them, by whatever. And the only reason it feels good being so mean to somebody is because it itself is hurt and feels like it needs to retaliate. But if you love the person, you wouldn't want them to hurt at all, right? So the ego does not operate out of love. It's selfishness. I mean that in the bad way. Selfishness, not proper self-interest. I mean selfishness, not proper, self-interest, but the type of selfishness that is harmful to oneself. The opposite of real self-interest. The type of selfishness that doesn't care about you really. It just cares about the ego, your own ego, because it hurts you. How can selfishness care about you if it's hurting you? And it also wants to hurt other people, right? And the thing is, this is ingrained in people. It's in the human psyche. So we have to move beyond it and let it fall away like the rest of the garbage. So the question is, do you want to be one of those people who feels no love who is so hurt that they just lash out at people. They can barely give anything of themselves and push people away. And therefore, the love that other people could reciprocate, they never feel themselves. Do you want to be one of those people? Well, the people who find themselves in that position, they don't want to be that type of person either. They just have found themselves there because they didn't do the self-reflection, self-realization work. And then, sure enough, they end up finding themselves in this horrifying position that no one would actually want to be in. So, and it's a slippery slope. It doesn't happen by one decision. It doesn't happen accidentally. I mean, it doesn't happen on purpose, but you simply just find yourself there. The more ego there is, the more tetheredness to your own ideas, tetheredness to your own emotional tetherness to the ideas. The ideas themselves are, they can be right, they can be wrong, they can be, good or bad, whatever. But when you're so emotionally tethered to things, you then push everything else away. So people who have done that so much and haven't done the honest self-reflection, they become very unhappy. Then they can't find a way out of it. The people that would help them don't, because they get lashed out at or they don't feel any warmth, And then people like that end up just going down in so many incalculable ways. And people who do the opposite, and those who have the ability to self-reflect in these ways and then build upon it, their lives become better. People and things arise in their life that are helpful to them and their causes, and they're able to see that, and they can relate with them in good ways without pushing them aside needlessly because of their own, I wouldn't even say their own needs, I said the needs of their own ego, right? And then they can be vulnerable, other people be vulnerable back to them, they express love, they get love expressed back to them, their whole sphere changes. Then the people on the other side, their whole sphere also changes, but it devolves because there's just coldness, isolation. When you're cold and isolated, that's all you'll see in other people, that's all you'll listen in other people. So be aware of all these things when even looking at other people and the way in which their lives have progressed. And then take every experience as a learning experience to self-reflect better yourself and see what works and what doesn't. And you can make your own life very, very positive and vibrant. And the world as you see it is not necessarily the world as it is. It could be, but it most certainly is the way you see it. So when you change on the inside, the way you see everything also changes.